Hello, my name is Cyclone, and today we're going to be tracking a severe thunderstorm threat across southeastern Queensland where a lot of rainfall has fallen, 250 millimetres in one or two locations over the past 24 hours to be precise. And we're also going to take a peek at a potential tropical cyclone threat across the Coral Sea. We're going to be seeing a tropical low which is situated onshore around Queensland, which is bringing all those thunderstorm activities and humidity across southeastern Queensland that could actually wrap itself up into a fully fledged tropical cyclone in around 7 to 10 days time, but its forecast is very uncertain. And we'll also take a little peek at the remnants of ex-tropical cyclone Kirrily too. And if you are brand new to the channel, then please do consider subscribing and leave a like on the video while you're at it, because we're getting close to 10,000 subscribers and your support really does mean a lot. So thank you so much in advance. So let's zoom into southeastern Queensland right now and take a look at the current picture. There's quite a lot of rain happening in the form of thunderstorms, very strong thunderstorms actually moving through the north around Bundaberg, the Sunshine Coast and so forth. And it's also a really intense one that's moving just north of Brisbane at this time. That one got labelled as a very intense thunderstorm, but now at about 7 a.m. local time, it's really starting to clear off now and ease off. But still, more than 200 millimetres has been dropped in locations around Redcliffe, a very strong storm that's for sure, and more rainfall is to come later on today. But we will take a look at the rainfall forecast now. You can see strong thunderstorms are forecast to start developing around the mountainous areas north of Toowoomba and then towards Gympie as well, and they'll move north around the Sunshine Coast and up towards Bundaberg. They should give the Brisbane Metro and especially the Gold Coast a big miss today. It looks like that low pressure system is going to be situated just on shore around Harvey Bay at around I'd say around midnight tonight. So those strong thunderstorms should be moving north of the Sunshine Coast up to around Bundaberg and maybe even up towards Gladstone and Rockhampton as well. But still very strong storms indeed expected up there, and they will be delivering quite a lot of rainfall throughout Tuesday and into Wednesday morning as well, hopefully clearing off by around Wednesday evening and into Thursday morning. So rainfall accumulation over the next 12 hours, expecting quite a lot more rainfall, especially inland. Around 50 millimetres can be expected before the afternoon hours of today. But as you get into the afternoon hours, you're going to be seeing these really heavy rainfall totals develop across the scenic rim and then north of the scenic rim and up towards the Sunshine Coast as well, where you'll be seeing rainfall accumulation approach 100 millimetres for some locations around Gympie, and then towards the Sunshine Coast as well, up towards Noosa and then towards Harvey Bay. You can be seeing totals at least 25 millimetres and some totals probably approaching 100 to 150 millimetres. The forecast models can't get a very accurate picture in terms of how much rainfall is expected, considering of their resolution, which means how much data they're able to crunch in a certain amount of time or in a certain model run. They work off basically a 10 kilometre squared resolution, so it's very difficult for them to get an accurate picture of thunderstorms. But with these strong thunderstorms, these very intense thunderstorms, what you're looking out for is very isolated and very intense rainfall totals. So there will be pockets in here that completely miss out of rainfall, and then there'll be pockets that get twice as much rainfall that is expected. So if you do get placed under a severe thunderstorm warning, just prepare adequately in the maybe half an hour to an hour of warnings that you have. So if you are in a flood prone area, then just make sure that you're moving everything out of that flood zone. And if you are placed under an evacuation warning or evacuation advice, then it's a very good idea to evacuate before the thunderstorms do get in. But I don't foresee them being severe enough today. They were very nasty over the past couple of days, but a lot of rainfall is still expected, which could prompt some flash flooding, and there will be a lot of lightning activity and probably also some hailstones associated with these thunderstorms. They're going to be quite nasty indeed. Hopefully though, they'll be easing off after today, and then over the next 5 days you're not really expecting too much rainfall in southeast Queensland. In fact, it looks like you're going to have a pretty clear run as we get into later this week and into early next week as well. It's been driven by this very humid air mass from this tropical or this low pressure system that's bringing that tropical moisture. Now that is actually the precursor to the tropical cyclone that we could be seeing in a couple of days time, or maybe about a week's time. But I mean, look at these humidity values, about 100%. This is humidity comparable to Bali or Singapore. Huge humidity totals. I mean, we don't see this in southeastern Queensland hardly ever, but they should hopefully start to ease off today for around Brisbane and so forth. Still though, you could be seeing humidity levels, as I click the wrong buttons, you could be seeing humidity levels approach 90% for some locations around Brisbane. So still going to be very, very high high totals. And I mean, when you're looking at temperatures approaching 30 degrees Celsius in some locations, your heat index will be you'd be looking at around 35, maybe even 37 or 38. So horrible heat. Just make sure you're drinking plenty of water. You're staying out of the direct sun because this is a nasty sun that's going to be beating down on you. It is a little bit cooler than the last couple of days where we've been looking at maximum temperature approaching 35 degrees Celsius for some locations, coupled with 100% humidity. So it will be a little bit cooler. However, still very tropical heat that we're seeing here, associated with the ex-tropical cyclone Kirili located towards the southeast of Mount Isa and the tropical low that's going to form off the Coral Sea. So some very nasty weather conditions materializing around here. Now let's take a look at the precursor to that tropical low. We're going to flip this over to the wind forecast here. This gives us a good idea of what's swirling around in the lower levels. So you can see ex-tropical cyclone Kirili starting to peter out across Tuesday and into Wednesday. She's not too much of a threat anymore. However, by around Friday, she's expected to get close to the coastline around Corumba and the Gulf of Carpentaria and Mornington Island. And there is the small chance that she re-intensifies around the very extreme southeastern predicaments of the Gulf of Carpentaria. I mean, there's probably about a 5% chance that she redevelops into a tropical cyclone, but there's chances still certainly there. I really don't think that it's going to happen, and I don't think the forecast models have got a pretty accurate scope of what's going to happen. Her forecast is still very uncertain, but over the next 10 days, a lot of rainfall expected, especially around the southeastern areas of Mount Isa. You could be seeing widespread totals approach 400 millimetres over probably the next couple of days, actually. Oh, that actually looks more long-term, but as we see around Julia Creek and so forth, rainfall totals over the next 5 days approaching 300 millimetres in one or two locations, and then on the Gulf of Carpentaria coastline as well, around 2 to 300 millimetres as well. A lot of rainfall expected there, which could cause some flooding. And then as the storm bounces back inland, you can see quite a lot of rainfall falls around southwestern parts of Queensland, but I don't think that that's going to materialise in the fashion that the forecast models are saying. That's a lot of rainfall for this corner of Australia, and I don't foresee that being a chance of happening at all. Now you can already see this tropical low starting to spin up, but we're going to pull this back to Friday. You can see this tropical low here, which is that low that we've got off the coast of Queensland right now. So that's what I'm saying, tropical moisture. This is going to become maybe a tropical cyclone actually as it heads offshore towards New Caledonia and so forth. At this point it'll be subtropical, so it'll have no thunderstorm activity and no convection around it. It'll just be a big swirling wind mass, a lot like an east coast low to be fair, but it does have that chance of developing into a tropical cyclone. You can see it spinning up quite nicely by around next Monday and into Tuesday, but it barely gets to cyclone status until about Thursday, and then it looks like it goes for rapid intensification. But as I said, its forecast is very uncertain. At the 10-day mark, the axis has it much further south and also much stronger, so I don't think that this is a reliable forecast to go off, but you still can see the Access G3 model developing it into a tropical cyclone over what looks like Vanuatu before, I guess, it swings it back actually towards the Coral Sea. But this is going to be a very wacky forecast track from the Access G3 model by around Tuesday and into Wednesday. It looks like it is this very broad, messy system making landfall on New Caledonia as a Category 3 severe tropical cyclone and then pulling back into the Coral Sea. I don't see this being a track that happens. That's a very erratic track for a tropical low or tropical cyclone to take. And I mean, looking at its wind field, it's very much a southern side storm, dominated by the southern side, which I guess is pretty similar for all Australian region tropical cyclones, I guess, in the Coral Sea. But it's a very weird looking system indeed, and it's probably not a tropical cyclone at this stage. It's probably something more subtropical in a similar fashion to an east coast low. So that's a very weird track indeed. But once again, it does have a little bit of model support. The GFS actually calling for it to be over Fiji, but I believe it actually had a system move into southeastern Queensland by around next Saturday or so. Yeah, so it calls for it to develop around New Caledonia, and previous model runs have had it making landfall around Rockhampton or Bundaberg, and it looks like it does that exact same thing as a tropical cyclone actually, or in fact on top of Mackay. So we still have that cyclone threat for the Queensland coastline for anywhere between Townsville down to around, I'd say Harvey Bay at this stage. But I mean, the chance of a cyclone crossing the coast, you're probably looking at about 1 to 2% at this stage in the next week. But those chances can change with the forecast. So be watching the forecast very closely. You'll be able to get the latest updates every single day here. I'm not planning any more holidays. I'm very much holidayed out at this point. So make sure that you're staying up to date and getting the latest information from the Bureau of Meteorology, and also your sources such as me or the channels that you might subscribe to or follow, because it's great to get a good idea of the complete picture. But you still can see that we've got this tropical cyclone strength system, maybe a category 3 actually making landfall on Mackay. But as I said, a very uncertain picture, a difficult forecast to make. But the GFS, it is one of the more reliable models in the longer term forecasts. The Eastern Repair and the Access model generally break down after around day 5. But the GFS was fairly accurate actually with Cyclone Kirrily. It called for that weakening system and this much weaker landfall on Townsville before all the other models called for it. So I do actually have a little bit of trust in the GFS right now. So the GFS's long-term suggestion that we're seeing a landfall on top of Mackay has my head turned, and I'll be watching this forecast quite closely because, again, that's a very plausible track for a cyclone to take. And I mean, this time of the year, we could be seeing landfalls at any location along the tropical Australia coastline. So that's very possible indeed. But again, the chances right now probably under 5%, but they will change, and by around Saturday and Sunday we'll actually have a very good idea on what's going on here. The Bureau of Meteorology has marked this as tropical low 06U, and they've got it at a 5% chance of tropical cyclone genesis of this time of the year. But apart from that, actually looking relatively dry across the tropics. I did forget to mention that we're going into a bit of a quiet period with the monsoon, especially up north. In fact, not a couple of spots expecting any more than 100 millimeters over the Northern Territory, which is relatively dry for January. However, we'll probably be seeing that rainfall start to kick up around mid-February, associated with another monsoon burst, and we'll likely be seeing another cyclone develop there. We haven't been seeing any Western Australian cyclones yet, and with sea surface temperatures approaching what looks to be around, or I would say 30 to 31 degrees Celsius in one or two spots, so it looks a little bit cooler now, to be fair, with those westerly winds, which is some good news because they're very hot sea surface temperatures. We could be seeing some pretty strong tropical cyclone activity through here, but it looks like we've got this sort of southerly current moving up through Exmouth and that sort of region, which is weird for the Lewin current. It looks like it's completely reversed itself, so that might be pretty good in the sense that it's bringing cold water up towards the West Australian coastline, and that's probably what's inhibiting the cyclone activity because sea surface temperatures offshore from Western Australia are a lot cooler than usual. But yeah, that basically does it for your weather wrap across Australia. You can see those thunderstorms over around the Queensland coastline right now looking fairly strong indeed, and they'll be getting stronger as today goes on. But anyway, that is all the latest from me across the national picture. Stay tuned for more forecasts, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.